Friday to you. I am still half asleep, to be honest. Having a hard time getting to sleep and staying asleep these days. I hope you've all had a wonderful week. I am in a situation where I don't have quite as much privacy as I would like in order to have a quiet space to bring you any videos, which is why it's going as slow as it is to get started. So I'm in my car at the moment. And I may end up just doing a number of these videos from within my car simply because it's so much easier and straightforward. I am going to be spending some time in the mountains starting tomorrow. I'll be at least a few weeks up in the mountains, and so might be able to bring you some videos that way. As I'm sitting here in the car, I'm very aware of the sound of the space. My car, being leather, has its own sort of acoustic, but then outside of that, I'm not too far from a very heavily trafficked expressway and a freeway and an airport. I'm listening and I'm realizing, speaking of airport, that was a major airliner going almost directly overhead. I'm realizing how surrounded by traffic I am, and that sort of urban noise, or in this case, suburban. And I'm wondering if being up in the mountains will be any different, although the place that I'm moving to is near the single major highway that goes through that area, and it is a pretty busy road. I'm hoping that there'll be a way where I can have some quiet to still my consciousness a little bit. If you listen to whisper videos, you certainly understand the meaning of and need for quiet. So hopefully that will be something I can bring you. Some quiet and some wildlife sounds, birds at least, possibly groundlings, little guys, squirrels, and what have you. I do so love listening to ASMR and whisper videos. My main trigger being just a whispery voice. I find listening to a whispery voice that's well-spoken is so relaxing. And I realize actually as I'm doing this that I'm speaking a little too quickly. I prefer personally, I'm lying back, so I'm readjusting myself here. I personally prefer a very slow and measured pace. I'll give you an example. I am speaking in a fashion now that is much slower and more measured in order to provide the calmness and stillness that might help you drift off. It's actually difficult to pull that one off. So reading helps. When I was a little kid, I had a lot of bad dreams, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and I'd go and I'd grab my dad, and I'd beg him to read to me until I fell asleep. And there were actually a couple of books that he really wanted to introduce me to. Jack London in particular. He was a huge fan of Jack London. And I would always fall asleep because he had such a beautiful speaking voice, and he spoke in a very measured way. And when he read, he was very careful without sounding artificial, if that makes any sense. And it would just, within minutes, I would be deeply asleep and I would be thoroughly comforted. So before any of these whisper videos came along, I started listening to podcasts of people reading. I got really into LibriVox, in case you're familiar with that. And I looked at possibly contributing to that venture, but I couldn't find a single book that I'd be interested in reading. And it's an effort, actually, to read an entire book, to commit to doing that, and reading the entire book and recording it and uploading it. I'm so appreciative of the folks at LibriVox, all the volunteers, who are bringing public domain books to the world. And then I would search on YouTube for whisper reading or reading or books or literature. And, back in 2005, 2006, there weren't any. And then in 2008, I believe it was, I discovered Miet's Bedtime Story podcast. And this woman just reads these amazing short stories, and almost all of them she does in a single sitting, so the majority of her readings are between 15 and 45 minutes long. Although once or twice she did a collaboration with other readers to put an entire book together, and then she herself read a much longer one that was completed over 4 or 5 series of podcasts. But then, I believe in 2011, I discovered the whisper community, and I stumbled upon the term ASMR. I had never heard that before. I didn't know what that was, but I'd always had it. Scratching sounds and tapping sounds and crinkling sounds and clicking sounds and hands on fabric sounds, those sounds don't do anything for me. They don't really give me tingles. For me, the only trigger is a voice. However, as far as ASMR tingles go, however, I do find it extremely relaxing to listen to the sound of someone quietly tidying up a room, say. If I were there in the room taking a nap, or, if I were sick and my mom were coming in to tend to me and she was tidying up the room in such a way, very carefully and slowly, in such a way as to not disturb me, that would be very peaceful. Because it's really more about the focused attention and the sense of care. That's what I find so compelling, and that's what I find so relaxing. I'll add at this point that when I was 12, I had pneumonia. I had bacterial pneumonia, which is extremely dangerous. And I was ill for a little over 4 months. And took a lot of antibiotics to try and knock it out. They didn't think I was going to make it. They were all very concerned for me. Still don't know to this day how I contracted this, but there it is. Most people, when they get pneumonia, it's an extension of or an after effect of a more standard cold virus, and it ends up settling in the lungs, deep in the lungs, not in the upper bronchial areas. And the lungs get inflamed and fill up with a little bit of fluid, and then it's really hard to breathe, and you're just exhausted. But the body does end up fighting it, and unless you're very old and frail or you have some kind of immune deficiency, your body will end up recovering from that on its own. But apparently in the case of bacterial pneumonia, you have an actual, large microorganism that multiplies quickly, and it was very serious. I had a lot of high fevers, and I lost a lot of weight because all I could do was lie in bed and sleep, and then I would get up because my fever would spike and I would be so achy, and then they would put rubbing alcohol on my body and fan the sheet just to get me to cool down, because there's only so much aspirin or Tylenol or whatever that you can give a person, and then after that you just have to cool the brain down so the brain doesn't fry. That was all pretty yucky information. I apologize. However, the reason I brought it up is there are lots of times being ill like that for such an extended period of time that I would either be read to, or someone would come in and tidy my room for me very quietly and gently, just to freshen it up, And I always found that so soothing and so comforting, and I felt really cared for, even though I was kind of off and alone much of the time, because it's not like someone's gonna sit by your side day and night. Other people have to get things done. So it's very soothing. I'm so grateful for all the other whisperers here on YouTube, and all the folks that do these time-consuming things just in order to share a little piece of something they themselves enjoy with others who might also find pleasure in the same thing. It's a real gift. YouTube is such a wonderful place, and although there are a lot of trolls and nasty commenters, those are just miserable, unhappy people, and it's almost not even worth the time to feel sorry for them, because all the rest of us are just connecting and caring about each other. And I think there are people in the world who resent that for whatever reason. So here on YouTube, I watch tutorials and share news and information and enjoy the whispers. And it's really become one of my favorite places, I have to admit. So I'm going to sign off for now. I certainly hope you've enjoyed this and found it relaxing in some way, in spite of all the background sounds, traffic, and airplanes. And I'll make a sincere effort to just put more videos out there. You just need more content to find something, anything that is interesting and that captures your attention. So it's important to me to try and contribute to that. Oh, my arm's getting tired, and so I'm having the most, it's like you're looking at me from down here. That's attractive. Sorry. Oh, so anyway, I have to get going because I have an appointment, but I wanted to take a few minutes just to say hi again and to smile at you and to whisper at you for a few minutes. So, until next time, be well.